everyone, welcome back to Absolutely Marvel and DC, and today we're going to be bringing you another episode of Absolute Comics. Filler episodes, although I'm loving making these comic book discussion videos, Sal. I feel like we haven't done just comic book discussions on Absolute Comics in years, which may actually be true.
I think the last episode was very purely comics. It felt good to be back, so I'm glad that you're getting the itch.
I feel like these last three have just been comic book discussions. X-Men, Spider-Man, and we were talking about stuff before that, but I kind of enjoying these just a whole episode about a run of comics kind of thing.
Best case scenario, the audience likes it too.
Well, they are. The guys are liking it, and we really appreciate that. And we wanted to kick off 2023 because there's a good chance if you guys are liking these discussions of widespread arcs, we'll just keep doing them. They might get a little infrequent as we eventually will talk about all the big shit, but
yeah. But absolutely more like Absolute Comics. That's a good show for just like here's some thoughts, and then if you want like the more up to date stuff, just go over to AMD.
Right, well, AMD, we cover all the up-to-date stuff.
Exactly.
And then Absolute Comics is more becoming just a collection of everything. And yeah, anyway, today we're going to talk about Venom. So
yes,
I was going to craft the video up for Comicstorian, and I still will, and I'm calling this the best retcon for Venom ever. Now, that's the title to get the clicks in, but
you're not wrong.
It is a retcon, but I think this is the best way ever to do a retcon and not just be like, we just said screw King in Black.
Yeah. I mean, they did. But also... and it's funny because, like, I guess we could talk about it at the top of the hour, the idea that, you know, Al Ewing did this whole huge status quo for the Hulk.
Right.
And then Donny Cates came in and was like, but how about this? Yeah. And Donny Cates did this whole thing for Venom. And then Al Ewing's like, yeah, but how about this, though?
Yeah, you know what? Let's talk about that first, though, because I actually dislike how Donny Cates handled it. Because Donny Cates generally ignored everything that happened in Immortal Hulk. It gets referenced here and there, but it's different because Al Ewing is incorporating all the events that happened in King in Black to lead to where we're going.
Yes.
Well, Donny Cates kind of went, Mortal Hulk happened. We're all acknowledging that.
But my thing, though. Yeah,
yeah,
no,
but my thing, though.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That is exactly how they handled it. I don't know if necessarily one was better than the other. I think that as long as it's acknowledged and it is part of the history, it's fair play. But,
yeah,
right.
You know, I didn't not like the Al Ewing Hulk run. I actually really enjoyed it, but I didn't read the entire run. I only read I only read the beginning of it and was like, all right, like I don't really care for the Hulk overall, so I'm not into the entire saga. Eventually I'll get to it. But I liked a little bit of what Donny Cates was doing. I was like, this is kind of a fun thing, and it didn't feel like it threw the baby out with the bathwater, although, I mean, that is kind of what he did.
Oh, it basically did. I mean, Al Ewing's Hulk run ended in a place where there was nowhere to go, nowhere you could go.
Well, and that's the other thing, right? Like, didn't he, like, kind of
this.
end the... I mean, like, not that he ended the Hulk, but he kind of, like, I mean, I do not envy who takes over next. And
100%. Like, I say a lot of times that when it comes to American comic books, you need to stop looking at, like, the whole run of a character. You need to look at the long runs of a single writer.
Yeah.
So, like, Tom King's Batman is reserved as Tom King's Batman. Like, it doesn't relate to what he did in James Tynion's run. Doesn't relate to what he's doing in Chip Zdarsky's run. And you need to, and they might reference, because that's just being respectful.
Them. Yeah, but, like...
It's a different tone, different vibe, different story being told at that point.
Yeah,
precisely.
And that's kind of what Al Ewing did. But when Al Ewing ended his Hulk run, it was like, so what if I just ended the Hulk? That's how it felt. It wasn't like Al Ewing ending his run so that somebody could take over.
Yeah.
It was like, are we getting another Hulk book?
Right. And Cates is like, I just wanted to tell my Hulk story. And I think it's actually like a ripe time to do that, because it's like, how can you top it? But also, I mean, Ewing didn't really give anybody else any place to go. So I guess we'll just start over. With Venom, though, you know, like, Cates clearly had, like, a long game, not unlike how Ewing did, and set up, but very much set up Venom on, like, a platform being like, this is what the status quo is. Like, Eddie Brock, Space, King in Black, Dylan, Symbiote, Venom.
Right.
Two Venoms.
Which is weird, because Marvel tried for years to swap Venom out with somebody else, which I found dumb, because they had Flash Thompson and it was selling. Like, why did they... Like, they did Flash Thompson as Agent Venom. It was doing well. He has a fan base. There was multiple runs involving him. And they decided to try and go to Lee. Remember Lee?
Lee Price.
Lee Price. That was the name.
Lee Price.
And I love it because apparently, what was it? Yeah, Cates killed him off unceremoniously in like an almost off-panel sequence, and Marvel was like, like apparently there was some contention there, and I love that because Marvel was like, no, they were all in on Lee Price, like they really believed in that character, and I love that the audience was like, I don't really care about that guy. Like,
well, the problem, and we're gonna get to what happened with King in Black and all that stuff recently, but I want to get to. So, as a fan of Venom, Venom actually was one of the few characters that got proper progression and did not get reverted to his status quo.
No,
that was Agent Venom. Like he was going in a whole new direction.
Yeah,
but they announced a movie.
Right.
If you think back to the changes they made to Venom. It was around, I believe it was around the time, or at least they knew it was coming, kind of like DC putting Black Adam into every comic book for the last 10 years.
Yeah. Yeah. That was a really good idea. It really panned out for them.
Yeah, I'm glad I still love how they ended the Black Adam thing with him being like, all right, well, I can't be in the Justice League, and I'm going to go back to Kahndaq, and if you get in my way, we're going to fight. Like, so we're just going back to where you were 10 years ago. Got it.
Bye.
Oh, man.
See you in the Shazam book.
Yeah. So anyway... they decided they wanted an evil version, but the problem is they'd given so much character development to Eddie Brock as well. Yeah. Eddie Brock for 10 years had not been Venom.
Yeah.
He was like that insane guy on the side who became like, I'm psychotic and I'm anti-Venom. And oh,
man. Yeah.
They ruined Eddie Brock so hard.
It's a fantastic Eddie Brock impression right there.
It was pretty solid. But yeah, no, and it's funny because
they tried to make Lee Price the evil Venom again, but
like
no one wanted that.
Like one day he's gonna fight Spider-Man and it's gonna be just as cool as it was in the '90s, and it's like, no, it won't. You can't do that. You can't just force it. You know, you have to.
I think the worst part about the Lee Price idea was it was jarring.
Yeah.
2, they pulled that bullshit where they don't tell you what happened.
Right.
Flash Thompson's run just ended, and then we just move on, and Venom's attached to Lee Price, and we don't know what happened.
No, I vaguely remember there being like a really half-assed like sequence where like Lee Price like abuses the symbiote. He's like, "You work for me now," and the symbiote's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, Lee Price. You're such a badass."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Wow, I'm not reading this book." And then, Cates is like, don't worry about that, everybody. I got this.
Right. So Cates did another natural evolution of Venom, where he took everything that existed before, turned them into the King in Black, made them into this whole alien race, this whole battle against Null, linked everything together. It was great.
Yeah.
And he ended it, like you said, with Venom. Eddie Brock is now King in Black.
Yep.
Dylan is now Venom. And I think the expectation was that someone would take over and tell stories about Dylan, and someone would take over and tell stories about Eddie.
Right, 2 Venom books, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe 2 Venom books.
They did. Because they did, but they just did it in the same one, because I was going to mention this. I believe the Dylan Brock side was written by Ram V.
Yes.
And Al Ewing did the...
crazy
Eddie.
time travel stuff that we're going to get to. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the situation with Eddie, though, is now... Al Ewing wants to tell a Venom story, but Eddie Brock isn't Venom.
Yeah, and it's like really, it's so funny how often a new writer or any writer will like want to, over the last 15 years, like want to do a Venom story and then go, well, I was, so Eddie shows up and I'm thinking maybe he'll go back to his roots, and they're like, oh no, he doesn't even have the symbiote right now. Like, oh no, Eddie hasn't been Venom in years. Like remember when there was already a toxin, but then Eddie got the toxin symbiote, and you're like, what is happening? They're like, it's just, I know it kind of isn't the thing you want, but it looks like it a little bit, so just get over it.
We're going to give Eddie every symbiote except Venom, because we made Agent Venom, and we like that, so we can't give it back to Eddie.
No. And like, that's what's so funny about this run we're going to start referencing, or this story, this perfect retcon you refer to, because it's also not Venom.
Yeah. So what's going on in Venom? And I'm not going to lie, I'm a Venom fan, and everyone's like, Benny, why aren't you covering Venom? I hated it.
Yeah.
I thought it was terrible to like issue 7 or 8.
I didn't like it either.
It was playing way too much of a long game, and it was going nowhere, and it was convoluted. Eddie's bouncing through time periods. He's going to the end of time. He's met these other King in Blacks. Dylan, meanwhile, is trying to use Venom but not use Venom, and just gets captured, and Venom's off doing a cocoon thing, and you're like, what's going on over there? And and it was taking way too long to get anywhere, so I dropped the book. And my expectation was, when it's done, I'll read it all, and if I like it, we'll cover it. Like that's what I figured.
Right.
So Eddie showed up in Dark Web, and Dark Web said they would explain what's been happening to Eddie in Venom number 14. And I was like, I guess I should finally go read Venom, because that means that whatever was going on has ended.
Yeah, and I love that they that's just a condemnation of Dark Web as well, where they're like, okay, and here's what Venom's doing at Dark Web. If you want to know why he's doing that, go read a book that hasn't come out yet.
That was the worst thing ever, because that book gave so much context to what was going on.
It really did. I was like, oh, I need that. Yeah, okay, thank you.
So, Dan, you actually read comics on a weekly basis because you're forced to, as opposed to what Sal and I do, which is read when we want to. Right. How did you feel about Venom as it was coming out, 1 through 13?
Honestly, I'm in the same boat as you guys. I hated it. I actually dropped it at issue, I want to say 10 or 11, because like there were just so many comics out at the time that I was like, that's on the lowest.
So you
part
got
of my...
over the explanation?
No. Like even past 10 and 11 or...
8 is the explanation, and then it keeps moving forward after that, where it explains Eddie's everything.
All I remember was it got way too convoluted, and they were just jumping back between Eddie and Dylan too frequently that I was like, look, like if I was just reading Venom, okay, I get that. I'm reading way too many other books right now. I have trouble differentiating one Spider-Man comic from another Spider-Man comic, let alone 2 different comics in the same comic. Like
that was the issue I related to. Like I'll bounce between multiple comic books, or like even just Venom. When I was reading Venom and I got to like issue 3, which is when I initially dropped it off, I was like, weren't we just doing this in Venom? Why are we now over here in Venom? Like,
yeah.
No, it's why I wasn't reading the book. I was like, I can't. This is just confusing. Or at the very least, it's not confusing. It wasn't engaging enough. I was just like, this is not the exciting new status quo. Like, say what you will about King in Black and that status quo, but building up towards a sword-wielding bad guy with black in his name, I'm like, I mean, yeah, I've seen it 1,000 times, but it's drawn by Stegman. It's going to be dope. And it was. It was fun. And this is just kind of like homework.
Yeah, well, it's just too much going on, and it reads better in the 13 issues. It reads incredibly as the 13 issues. It reminds me of Tom King's Batman and Catwoman.
Right.
I had to drop that at issue 4 because they kept jumping time periods, but when you read it in a sitting, it's like, this is great.
Yeah.
But it's not for floppies. It's just not.
No. Yeah. Most of Tom King's work is not meant for floppies. Like,
I just at this point, most of the time, I just buy the book at the end. I just got Killing Time. I'm like, Killing Time. This is gonna be a fun read.
Yeah, it was easy to fall off of Killing Time because I was like, there are a million bad books right now. King is not in trouble for losing work. Like, he's not gonna lose work if I don't read Killing Time.
So you fell off, Dan. So
I fell off because like it had that kind of same vibe as like anime when you're like, I'm really invested in this one character, and then they change like to a different character for 3 episodes, and you're like, I'm not watching it for this person. I want that person. What the heck's going on?
So what ended up happening was, though, in the first 8 issues, weird stuff was happening. Eddie being in 2 spots. Like they would, or he'd pop up randomly, or he'd suddenly turn into the Life Symbiote Foundation symbiotes. And you're like, what is going on?
Yeah.
8 reveal. Do you want to, because I've talked a lot, so do you want to explain the reveal of what actually is going on in Venom?
Oh, no, I don't, because I really don't understand. I'm like, I don't even know what's happening. Like, Venom is red now.
Okay. So what happened is Eddie went to the end of time, and he met multiple King in Blacks from different time periods, which was weird. Like, at least that I've read it, I'm like, oh, so him being King in Black actually isn't a big deal. Like,
yeah, that sucks.
Yeah, there's a lot of different King in Blacks. And my first thought was this is a way to start removing the importance of the King in Black.
Yes.
Because Eddie's literally a god at the moment. He can travel through time, space, and the multiverse and do whatever the hell he wants.
Yeah, yeah, that's fair.
So we have to remove that eventually. So that's what I thought they were doing.
Yeah.
It's different versions of the King in Black. As what we discover at issue 8 is that Eddie has the ability to slide through time laterally, horizontally, and vertically.
Okay.
And what he is going to stay the King in Black, and he's going to evolve into different Venoms. And that is what these different King in Blacks are. They are the evolutions of Eddie and Venom.
Oh.
And Meridian, the guy with Meridian is the final evolution. So what he's trying to do, Meridian is manipulating Eddie to force these evolutions faster than intended.
To become him.
To become him. So that's what's going on. So every time Eddie popped up and was a different Eddie, it was the same Eddie, just in a different time slot, sliding through time, messing with himself and affecting things unintentionally.
That makes this much worse.
Why?
Because in Dark Web, Ben Reilly steals Eddie's memories and factory resets him into being the classic Venom we all know.
Right.
When we could have just used Venom from the 90s.
You're just saying we just slid to that Venom and pulled him out?
Yes. Why did we need to do the memory thing when he could have just slid into his actual 90s form? Or are they saying that the memory thing is making him do that anyway?
Well, that's what they're doing. They're saying that the memory thing... So what's going on is it's become a thing of, if I know my fate, can I alter it?
Well, of course. Yeah, that's a great conversation. Yeah.
Right.
Classic
and that's
sci-fi trope.
Right. And what's happening is every time he tries to alter it, he becomes the next evolution. Is what started to happen.
I see. That's what Al's
So
doing.
we're seeing these evolutions be procced by him trying to prevent himself. There's one of the versions, there's like that goopy purple one, talks to Eddie to try and warn him not to do something, and this turns him into the next version of Eddie, the one that's like a puppy dog to Meridian.
Yeah.
And so what we discovered in Dark Web, them removing the so Eddie thinks he killed Dylan. We learn immediately he did not kill Dylan, but Eddie left the time period and doesn't know that he didn't kill Dylan. Oh. So because of that, Eddie took the deal from Madeline Pryor in Dark Web because she promised to tell him what's going on with Dylan. And as a ramification, to try and save Dylan, they pulled his memories out. That turned him into Bedlam, the red one.
Okay.
And that's why in 14, Dylan arrives, but now Eddie is confused because he thought he was Venom.
Yes.
But as the X-Men have told him, you're not Venom. What are you doing?
Right.
And he turns into Bedlam because Bedlam was hiding.
Yeah. Okay.
So what I think they're doing, and I kind of like what they're doing, I get what you're saying, but by doing this, we've reverted Eddie to Lethal Protector.
Yeah.
With a new symbiote that is Venom, but not Venom.
Right.
And we still have Dylan with Venom. Like, we have that going on as well.
Yeah, we didn't undo the Dylan status quo, but we are there's no, it's actually kind of similar to the Immortal Hulk situation where it's like we have no place else to go with Hulk. Like, we've made Venom a literal god. Where else can you go? And then it's like, well, we might as well make him like classic Venom, because that's what people want to do anyway.
And he doesn't remember his son right now either, because he's been reverted to that eat brains. And so I think we're really just getting him all the way back to pre-Dylan.
Yeah.
Like, we're basically going to retcon Venom back to how he was, but we're not changing what happened.
No.
We're keeping all of the King in Black stuff, all the extra symbiotes. We're keeping Carnage the way he is. We're keeping Dylan, but we're getting Venom back to the one that's in the movies.
Interesting. And I guess... yeah, go ahead.
What do you think? What do you both think?
I think it's clever, and I think the way that they're doing it with this time travel and him kind of talking to himself, really, it helps them out because they can do pretty much whatever they want.
Yeah.
Because they can always go, oh, hey, look, we actually kind of preferred this older Eddie Brock. Okay, just grab him from the time stream.
Right.
You swapped over, because we've proven you can have multiple different Eddie Brocks in the same place at the same time. He came from the end of time. So I have a feeling we're going to get one of those moments at the end where, like, he goes back even farther and talks to himself, and he's like, hey, don't do this.
Yeah. Like, I mean, like, it sounds like Ewing is building towards something, like, that will also change Eddie's status quo to something other than Lethal Protector. I mean, at this point, you know, I've been hit with the stick by Marvel so many times. Like, I don't believe that they're like, people prefer Lethal Protector Venom, and a lot of artists and writers like want to cover like classic McFarlane, Eric Larson, you know, Bagley era
giantly
Venom.
Bulky Venom.
Yeah, like big tongue, like dripping green stuff. Like, just we really want classic Lethal Protector, living on his own, homeless guy, wants to eat brains Venom. And I'm like, as much as I think that's true, since there is literally a Lethal Protector series written by the original creator of Venom out right now,
and a movie based on that version, they didn't go with an adult Venom. They went all the way back to Lethal Protector.
100%.
You could have changed it to any other point in that history.
Yeah, and I do believe that like there are a significant amount of creators and audience members that want that. I also wonder if it's not part of like a big, like kind of smokescreen or Kansas City shuffle, if you will, to kind of go, okay, so here's your Lethal Protector Venom for a minute, but actually, like, that's just part of Eddie's journey.
Yeah.
You know, or the new...
I can see... I mean, Al Ewing's already said that Meridian, that last guy, is where it's supposed to go. It's supposed to go Bedlam, the purple one, the greenish one, Meridian. That's the path we're supposed to take at this point.
Right, so he will inevitably get to that one, and then that'll be the status quo. And, because I will tell you, as much as I like classic Lethal Protector Venom, like, he's an idiot, and it's silly, and his miniseries were incomprehensible sometimes. But... The Ed McGuinness Spider-Man book that came out that showed them fighting was really bad. And it didn't. Like, they were like, I want Ed McGuinness to draw this because it'll be kind of like evoking classic 90s Spider-Man versus Venom. But it wasn't. And I don't know if it was like really well written to make you feel like, oh, it would be like going, well, I used to have a really happy Christmas back in my old hometown, but none of my family and friends live there anymore, but I'm going to buy a house there anyway and try and replicate it. And
sounds like a Hallmark romantic rom-com Christmas movie.
Except the reality of that is that if you don't know anybody there and you have nothing left of yourself and you've moved past that, you can't go home again. So, like, here you go. It's Spider-Man versus Venom.
So have you written this Hallmark movie, Sal? I think we should pitch it to them.
I mean, it's pretty, I mean, I feel like they all have. But in this Spider-Man comic, like, either it's lame or they want to meta-textually tell you that you can't go home again and you shouldn't be asking for those things. And I don't know which was which, but neither one was satisfying. So I questioned the decision to be like, okay, factory reset, he's Lethal Protector. Like, yeah, you know what? Like, because in Dark Web, they couldn't care less about him. They use him to, like, break doors or fight Spider-Man. He's he's not in anything. Like, he's not important.
Didn't Madeline Pryor even state she got him to distract other people? Like, 100%. That was the whole point.
In the Dark Web X-Men tie-in, number 2, she's like, I don't care. He's just there to distract people. And I'm like,
yeah.
Okay, so are you using the event to just sneak in this retcon? Because if that's the case, fine, because that's, like, a good way to do it. Yeah. But also, to what end? Like, is it the retcon of, like, ladies and gentlemen, classic Venom? Or are they like, ladies and gentlemen, we want you to think classic Venom, so you'll buy the book, but actually, it's like part 5 of a 13-part epic.
Well, that's the biggest issue I have with it. Like, okay, so you read this. You see that he's this weird bedlam, and he's fighting Dylan. You're like, oh, I want to go read what's going on in Venom.
Right.
And it's just so incomprehensible. Like,
yeah. I don't know. I don't want to read that. Like, I don't care about Venom versus Venom.
But I feel like once I start reading them individually again, I'm going to be like, oh, what the fudge is going on now? Like,
yeah, no, that's true. That's true. But, I mean, it is, for lack of a better word, it's a great retcon. Like, it is a...
And I think it's a great way to do it, because they didn't just go, oh, yeah, he's just going to be Lethal Protector. Why? Because.
Right. And they could have rolled him back. Like, they could have been like, oh, it's time travel. Or he's like, or they kill Dylan and they blame Spider-Man. You know, like, that could have been a very easy way to do it. You know?
Kind of a cop-out way to do it, too. But I kind of like what they've decided to do. Now, the question is, like you said, is this going to be just a period of the comic where he's Bedlam?
Right.
Or is this going to be like, no. Like, this is the new
who he is now.
We'll get back to his evolutions later.
No, I don't think so. I think there's no way that, like, Ewing is setting up these evolutions as part of the massive plot, and Venom's not going to be in it. Like, no, Venom, he's going to go to, like, San Francisco. He's going to hang out with the homeless people. Like, he's going to go underground.
But what if at the end of all this, he just reverts to the time before all the changes?
No,
like,
that
that's
could
what
be.
they have to do.
It could be that he embraces.
Sorry,
no, I was just going to say, like, just he could be like, I don't want all this complication, and Dylan is safer without me, so I'll be my young self again.
Yeah. I could see it going in the direction of one of those classic, he now knows where he's evolving to. He'll evolve in a different branch, fight himself, and then we'll get, that's the final version of Eddie Brock that we're going to keep. That's the finalized retcon version. Now let's just throw him back into the proper time stream.
Right.
and go from there.
Yeah, like he has to go to his earliest point before all of the changes happened. That's the,
Something
and that's the
like
only way
that,
to
and then
stop
fight
Meridian.
Meridius, because we also already had him fighting or working with Kang the Conqueror as well. So we've seen that moment of different time travelers being a part of this. I'm sure Meridius is going to compete with one of them. It's going to be a whole thing.
I'm just wondering if because the only problem is if they were to just take this version and make it the current Venom, and like he stops the plan but he's stuck at this version, he never got to say goodbye or anything to like Dylan. And I feel like if at the end he defeats Meridian but has to go back to before all of this was affected by King in Black, before anything adapted to him and Donny Cates wrote it, and we're basically going to retcon it, at least he could say goodbye. We could get a heartfelt ending to the story, to Sleeper and all these things. What do you think about Sleeper coming back and being so OP?
I mean, I'm glad someone's using him.
Sleeper's the symbiote cat that he was so strong he took out an entire anti-symbiote squad with his clone. It wasn't even him.
Sleeper was clearly supposed to be Dylan, or at least that was the red herring. Like, that will be Dylan's symbiote. And then they were like, no, he's Venom.
But I still think he should have been Sleeper, because now he's that random friend of Flash Thompson is Sleeper.
Yeah,
I'm going to guess right now it's going to be Sleeper is going to bond with Dylan to save him from that Venom symbiote. Eddie will probably like take that part of the Venom symbiote onto himself, because he'll be like, no, I don't want you to deal with this. And then that will somehow be what alters him to fight against Meridius later on.
Yeah.
It'll be something along those lines. And
I think you nailed it.
Honestly, I kind of hope, because, Sleeper's a really fun one. And I think also you can pseudo-nerf him a little if you bond him with a human that is apprehensive to use his powers because he's seen himself go evil.
Right.
That's kind of what I expect.
Yeah, that's fair. I like that. Yeah.
No.
I mean, Dylan should have been him in the first place, but I think that Cates was like, no, like, here's the new status quo for Eddie. He's over there. He doesn't need Venom anymore. And it's like, okay, yeah, that's fine.
Right. I mean, honestly, I like how Al Ewing's doing this, because he's taking everything that existed before. It's what he did with Hulk.
Yeah.
Immortal Hulk took everything that existed before and explained things that we never had an explanation to, but we never cared about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, and that's what he's doing with Venom. He's like linking everything together, and he's explaining how King in Black works. He's explaining what powers he has and what Sleeper does. It's just, I feel like Al Ewing compared to the Donny Cates swap, but I don't like using Donny Cates. It's just that the two of them are so obvious because they're
so
titles.
different. Yeah, they're such
like
different
Donny
creators,
Cates
too.
is like, I want to tell a Hulk story.
Yeah,
and Al Ewing's like, I want to continue a story about Venom that will end in a place that we can do something else.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I agree that he's not doing the exact same thing as Cates, but I think that one is still going and the other one isn't. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So, I mean, on one hand, we can argue which one was more successful technically. Although I know everyone was talking about Hulk, whether they liked it or not. Most of them were like negative about it, but that's the vocal minority. Who knows?
And I actually like Spaceship Hulk. I like what Cates did with it.
It was fun, like and now we'll never know how it was supposed to go.
Yeah,
but
I find it funny though, because it feels like Al Ewing's doing what we want, like what we want to transfer over from manga, that nonstop continuity.
Yeah,
as opposed to the new writer resets everything.
Yeah,
because that's what Case did. Oh, we're resetting. Now he's got a thing in his brain and he's dying of this and
yep.
But he can't die. Nope, he's dying of this. It's fine.
Yeah, that's true.
So anyway, that was today's episode of Absolute Comics. Dan, do you want to add anything else to this? You were quiet as usual.
I was actually just going to say one thing that I really respect about Al Ewing is he's really great at telling stories that involve multiple aspects of one character.
Yeah.
Because like you were saying with the Immortal Hulk, we saw multiple times where it was, he's now Joe Fixit. He's now Grey Hulk. He's not like he's really good at keeping true to one character while also exploring these different personalities and aspects. And I think that's one of the big things that made him and Donny Cates so different, is because Donny Cates is a lot more, this is my one big guy. This is the one big foe or event kind of thing that I'm going against, where Al Ewing's like, here's my sprawling web of my idea, and it's going to be this whole thing.
Totally.
I mean, Al Ewing did it in Immortal Hulk. I dropped off at like, I think
yeah.
14, and I came back at like 36. And they're like, holy shit! Like, what is going on?
No, totally.
But overall, really good.
Yeah.
I will say I'm very glad that we are doing this video so that I could catch up to it, because this does redeem those earlier issues where I was initially like, why am I still reading this? Like, what the heck?
Because it's Venom. We like Venom.
Exactly. And so I'm glad that it's finally kind of becoming a more complete story and finally at the meat of it instead of the setup, prepping all your ingredients kind of thing. We're finally in the making.
That's true. Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll catch you guys next week right here at Absolute Comics. We're going to talk about another comic book. Sal, do you have one that you've been reading that you want to discuss next time? That you've been reading in bulk?
Yeah, I mean, like, not really. I've been reading a lot of Human Target is an amazing series, so I guess I could talk about that at any point. But again, it's not like, you know, it's not controversial. It's just like, what a perfect comic book. Like, bravo. Please write more. You know,
please write more. We could talk about what Jason Aaron did with the Avengers.
I haven't read it in over a year, and
I haven't read it since World War She-Hulk. I was like, all right, I feel like we're at a good ending point, and I go to look back. For some reason, I thought it got canceled, and I go to look at it today, like the other day, and I'm like, there's been 9 issues. Like, I haven't read about this.
Avengers Forever has been going on, and I haven't even bothered.
You do not need to touch the Avengers book. Like, one issue every 7 issues actually matters, and then the rest are like, hey, here's a bunch of alternate versions.
Okay, then we'll talk about Ghost Rider next week, because they just made him the All-Spirit in Avengers Forever, so we can just look what that was and what they're doing with Johnny. Have you been reading Johnny Blaze Ghost Rider, Sal?
Me, no, but my wife is.
The next issue resolves the first arc.
Oh, okay.
It says to be concluded. I just read up to issue 9, and it says to be concluded at issue 10, so I'm like,
good. Yeah.
Okay, we're going to figure out what the hell's going on with the weird parasite in his brain.
Oh. Is that what's happening?
I apparently missed a lot of this run.
Okay, apparently Noah's read it, so we'll figure out something else for next week. So I'll just tell you real quick. He was removed as the king of hell. They put a parasite in his brain that separated him from the spirit of vengeance, but they inhabit the same body.
That's stupid.
Well, they pulled it out, and now they're working together again. Wolverine did it.
Okay.
Wolverine's like, I'm pulling off some surgery, Johnny.
It was so like bizarre. Okay.
Because we know if anyone's clean with surgery, it's Wolverine, the hack and slash guy.
Yeah.
Well, then we'll talk about Wolverine and Beast and Beast
oh my
and
God.
Beast and
Beast's complete fall from grace over the last 10 years, and how like
we'll talk about that.
Beast is a bad guy. Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, guys, hope you enjoyed today's talk. We'll see you next week right here at Absolute Comics.